Hello, my name is Jane Denning from Medusa Games, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of our game, Magnificent Flying Machines. So if we take a look at the general course here, this game is set in the time of the early air races before the First World War. Just managing to take off, fly along and land was quite an achievement in itself. So in those early air races, it wasn't about just getting to the end as fast as you could, because a lot of the machines wouldn't actually make it to the end of the course. There were prizes for other things. There were stages in the race, like the Tour de France nowadays. So here, when you get to the middle airfield, there are points to be had there, as well as on the final one. There were also prizes for different things. The best painted plane, or how many original components have you still got at the end of the race. There were prizes for taking a passenger to Manchester, for example, or delivering cargo to different places, and all these elements are reflected in the game. However, you do need to move along the course, and for that you're rolling dice and taking account of the different terrains. So I'm in this triplane here, and at the moment I'm over a water square. Now, water squares are quite easy to fly through, so I only need 2 flying symbols in order to traverse the square, although it's harder to take off or to land, which would be 4 symbols each. The next square across is a mountain square, and obviously mountains are much more difficult to fly through, so I would need 4 flying symbols in order to do that. Then we have to think about the weather, and in this case we've unfortunately got a thunderstorm over the mountains, so it's now going to cost me 6 symbols to fly through, or 7 if I want to land. So let's have a look at my triplane and see how well equipped it is to do these things. So here we have the dashboard, which shows us what is loaded on the flying machine in the way of spare parts, the cargo it's carrying, and also its abilities. In order to take off, I would roll 5 dice because I have 5 takeoff symbols there, and flying is likewise 5 dice. Landing for a triplane would normally be 4 dice, but in this case I've got some extra equipment, superior tyres, which adds an extra dice for landing. So to fly through the square, the water square, I need to roll 5 dice and try and get at least 2 flying symbols. And there we are. I have the 2 symbols I need. That's absolutely fine. So just moving back to the cursor a moment, I can move my plane on to the next square. Okay, now I'm going to try and make a landing in the mountains. So 7 symbols required. Going back to the dashboard, the reason I'm risking making a landing in the mountains is I have a mountain cargo to deliver, which will give me 5 points. And if I get to the end of the game without having delivered that, I'll actually lose points for it. So I roll my 5 dice. Not enough. So I've actually failed that test. So if you have a look on here, this is the summary card which sets out what happens when you take a test. So for landing, if I manage to pass, I land safely. If I fail, it's a bumpy landing and I'm going to take some damage. Had I rolled an explosion symbol, then not merely would I have taken 1 damage, I'd have taken 2, and there would have been quite a lot of consequences from that. So I failed my test. What am I going to do? Do I just accept that? Have a bumpy landing, take the damage, and accept I won't get the first to land points? Well, there are 4 points there. That's quite a lot. Probably I don't want to do that. So what can I do instead? Is there equipment that will help me? Well, here I have a flying manual, and what this does is I can use a charge off the card in order to make the terrain a little bit easier. So I could reduce it down by a couple of notches. I could spend all 4 charges, and those 3 landing symbols would then be enough to land safely. But maybe I don't want to spend all of that in one go. I've also got spare parts here, so I could use those. And then in addition, I've got cards in my hand, which also might have useful symbols at the bottom, or the text on the card might itself be useful. So here, good fortune, play to re-roll any or all the dice not showing the required symbol. So everything that didn't have a takeoff symbol, I could re-roll those. So combination of one of those ways, I'm going to be able to land safely. So when I do that, I will be able to move my mounting cargo from my cargo hold down here, and that's where I'm going to score points at the end of the game. Now, I said that there was a passenger to pick up. If I pick up the passenger though, where am I going to put them? Well, there are two places to store things: inside the plane or strapped to the outside. Most passengers don't want to be strapped to the wing, so I'm going to have to free up enough space inside for the passenger. And you can just discard a couple of spare parts in order to do that. So moving over to here, I have landed safely. I collect my 4-point prize for being the first to land. I also collect my passenger, and then I can put those back into my scoring area over here, put the passenger into the plane. The weather plays a big role in the game, and having a lightning storm over the mountains throughout the entire game would make for potentially not such a good result. So the weather at the end of each turn might change. So here we see that we've now got an east wind that's going to blow everything along one to the left, or we might find that there's going to be a change in the weather over the field squares or over the water squares and so on. I said that if you just rush along to the final airfield, you're unlikely to win because there isn't a lot that you can do while you're there. There's limited ability to score points, but usually the person that wins will be somebody who has managed to keep up with the pack, manages to get to the end of the course, but is not the one that's shot off on their own. So, there are 6 different types of flying machine in the game. They all have their own abilities. I've talked you through the triplane. Here we have a seaplane as an example of a different one. Seaplanes are very good at taking off and landing in water, not so good at taking off and landing the rest of the time, and they aren't that quick. They only have 4 flying dice as well. In total, we have 19 different pilots, all with different abilities. We have an array of different equipment as well that you can put in. And when you first take out the box, to begin with, we have a set of presets, which are what we suggest you use the first time. But once you know what you're doing, you can flip over the board, and now you can add in whatever equipment and whatever pilots and so on you want. Okay, so that's just a very brief overview of the game.